welcome back to the MMA Split Podcast. I'm your host Matt, joined as always by host and producer Josh.
Hello.
And now, introducing, as we have been promising for quite some time, our third member, Miguel.
Hello guys, thanks for having me here. I'm willing to be here a long time, so yeah, I think we can get very good talking about MMA and also find some interesting insights about it.
Fantastic. You are an MMA fan?
Yes, of course I am.
Excellent. How long have you been watching MMA?
Well, I started watching MMA when I was about 12, 13. That was the time I watched the most. Probably was between I was 13 and I was like 20, something like that. And actually, my older brother went to the United States, and when he came back, he introduced it to me. Afterwards, I went to the United States, and I also did some wrestling myself, and actually and I actually really got into this MMA world through the channel Spike, which is a 24-hour.
TV, yeah.
Exactly, it's a 24-hour TV show of MMA. So
It's where the Ultimate Fight started.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so yeah, we've all been having some beers. We've met a couple of times now, and we think you're going to fit in pretty well.
thanks.
We've wanted to have a third person on because however much me and Josh love talking shit with each other, everything flows better when you've got a third voice in the table and a third opinion. And we're really excited about this. We think it's going to lead to much better content for you guys. Open discussion. We're certainly going to be putting a lot more focus and attention as we have promised. This is the first step. And it's a pretty damn good card to start this off because we've got 289 in the books. Big news. The card delivered. Wasn't too promising on paper.
Yeah, we
But-
weren't hyped for it. Like,
No, I wasn't expecting that much, but it was good.
And it's not just a pleasantly surprised. I thought this was really entertaining. Only 2 official finishes, 1 no contest. But sometimes a decision fight is a great fight. It means you had 2 guys that were going at it.
Very close.
Some really interesting stories. Canada doing a clean sweep on the night, reminiscing the London card of 2022, the Ireland card back in 2013 or 14. One of those with Conor McGregor where we saw all the Irish win. And
it's long enough ago that you can forgive us for not, like, knowing.
Exactly. It was during the Conor McGregor run. Either way, it's exactly what a country sometimes needs to reignite their MMA passion.
Yes.
All of that, Nunes' retirement, Charles Oliveira smashing his way back into the win column, making us all look like idiots for
Yes.
piling on Benil Dariush. You did say.
So I guess you've been talking some
No,
shit
no,
about MMA, right?
Look, we
Come on, how
we
could
love
you?
Charles
Come on.
Oliveira and Benny D. So, in all of their fights prior to this that we've talked about, we've shown that love, and in the build up to this one, you know, we considered it a good even fight. It was, in fact, fucking just talking about what you were saying, like sometimes a decision is the best fight you can have. I would have loved to have seen a 3-round war with these dudes, but
It's not Charles' style.
it's not, is it? Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Before
can't
we
skip
get
it,
into
yeah.
this, like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, comment, give us your thoughts and opinions. Plenty of opinions to discuss on this one. I know we want to start with Charles Oliveira, but I feel like we should talk about the main event first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So going into this, we didn't know it was going to be Nunes' last fight.
No.
But she was
No,
dropping
nobody knew.
a couple of hints. She'd said that she thought about retiring when she lost to
Yeah.
Pena.
I wasn't surprised.
She said that she wasn't willing to retire against somebody like Pena. And when I heard that, I did kind of think maybe Aldana is somebody that if you beat, you're happy to retire against. She beats her 50-44, 50-50, 50-43, 50-43. It's the second fight in a row that she's won with multiple 10-8 rounds across all the judges' scorecards. It's one of many examples of her winning decision fights in her title reign with multiple 10-8 scorecards. The GOAT. The women GOAT.
Yes, definitely. I actually thought it was very surprising for me when she said that she was gonna retire, just because she kept such a high level.
Yep.
Like she should not retire. For me, like if you can keep this level because it seems he can keep it for a couple more years. I think
there have always been those comments. Like
she's already a legend, but come on,
when she was at ATT,
she's so ahead of everyone else. Still,
yeah, but
why would you retire?
I
There's
think
no one in the division that
I think
can
it's the
does.
passion. The passion wavers because when she was at ATT, there were talks about how you got to do what's right for her because sometimes you try and push her too hard and make things too structured. She like pulls back a bit, and obviously the first Pena fight, she wasn't all the way in. It's been obvious, like every dominant champ we've ever seen, GSP, Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, John Jones. Well, actually, John Jones is definitely on this list. They talk about how they mentally falter. John Jones does it in a very different way, through his arrest record.
Yeah.
But like they talk about, how heavy lies the crown. Amanda Nunes started off her UFC career and had obvious spots in her MMA record where she wasn't all the way in. But when she fucking did things her way, and it wasn't being petulant or refusing to do other shit, but when she just did things her way and what was best for her, sheer fucking dominance. But there were these moments where you saw the passion kind of like falter a little bit, and like fair fucking enough. Like why wouldn't it? I mean, how can you like burn with the intensity of a champion for like year after year after year after year? Like people like break themselves going that hard, just chasing the opportunity to get what she then has to sustain for like that long period of time with that weight of expectation. So fair enough, but like you'd kind of seen it in spots throughout her career. I'm not knocking her at all, by the way. Just saying, like.
Okay. Once she gets that belt, though, dude, we're talking like 2 fights. 2 fights where maybe the level waned a little bit. Maybe it looks like she wasn't there. But what
Zero nogs, just fucking human, just open, vulnerable, and human. Like, and the fact that she talks about it is the most beautiful part because otherwise I'd just be speculating. Like,
how many knockout artists go from specializing in first round finishing to being a master at dominating 5 rounds championship fights? It's what she's done, and I know that featherweight's not a real division. I get that, but you look at this fight. She grappled in about, a round and a half.
Yep.
Was her using the wrestling. Aldana's a boxer, and I actually thought, there was a couple of right hands she landed early in the fight, and you thought maybe she can get the timing, but the variety of kicks to the leg, kicks to the body, teeps, the jab, the aggression, combinations.
Actually, I thought she threw and she landed 8 straight jabs. Like in the I think it's the 4th round. I'm not pretty sure if it's the 3rd or the 4th round. She lands 8 straight jabs. Like, I was thinking if Aldana, come on, you've taken 6 of them, and she keeps coming with the same jab all the time, and you keep like getting in your face. Like, come on, do something. Come on, it's like your trainer should be saying something to you. Right,
well,
there. It's like
Aldana's best combinations were
shot.
thrown as like shadow boxing to almost try and establish range, but it was literally like my favorite thing about a takedown is making your opponent get down and then get up.
Yeah.
And most of those takedowns, like it was literally just
Seconds.
I'm going to threaten the level change. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to wear on your tank. You're going to get the fuck back up, and I'm going to hit you again. Like brutal, professional, surgical, little bit psychotic in some sense, but beautiful.
I kind of feel so. Here's my issue with Aldana. She's eaten a lot of shit. Kind of been spared because obviously now that the story is it's Nunes' retirement, the story is less Aldana not really being able to do anything.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I think she had in her mind the Alexa Grasso game plan against Shevchenko. If you look at the Grasso fight against Shevchenko, what did Grasso do really well? Moved around a lot, very disciplined, set up her shots and picked her moments very precisely, and landed well, and made Shevchenko have to kind of move around and strike. That works against Shevchenko because she's a counter striker. So you kind of forcing her to come forward is the best way to beat her. Nunes can counter strike, but she'll also walk you down and pressure you. And I know what you're saying, like, why retire now? Because you've just dominated the only person that you haven't already dominated that's in the top 5. There's But that's kind of the point. There's no interesting fights for her. She doesn't want to retire against Pena because she hates her so much that she doesn't want to give her the dignity of being her last opponent. So if she fights again...
Wife and kids too.
Second kid on the way. Second kid on the way, wants to be there more. The next fight would have been Pena. So if you don't want to retire against Pena, that means if you don't retire now, you've got to fight 2 more times. And that's maybe a year of your life. And she also kind of said she's got something that happens to her leg and an injury that happens to her cheek. And there's no issue in training, and she goes through a whole camp and it's fine. But every single fight, she gets hit once in like a glancing shot and it starts swelling up. Or she gets hit with one like barely touching leg kick and it hits in that spot.
Yes.
And it's agonizing pain. She's 35 years old and she's retiring as the double champ. Same number of title wins as Anderson Silva overall. Matches Ronda Rousey's total number of bantamweight title defenses at 6. Has the most number of title defenses at featherweight, which is now probably not going to be a division. We'll talk about that. And she has beaten every single champion that has ever fought at featherweight or bantamweight. So in the 2 divisions she's fought, she has beaten every champion there has ever been, most of them by knockout in the first round, and on top of that has back-to-back wins against the most dominant champion of the flyweight division.
Now, of course, nobody would disagree that she is retiring in a really good moment for her because of her age, because everything that she has achieved, and from this point, maybe she can only go to worst, not to better, because she has already proved everything. But I would really would like to see her keep fighting. Yes, as a fun perspective.
Yeah,
I would love to keep having these fighters.
Yeah.
But
Well,
But you get new surprises, like that was the name of
I
this
love
guy.
it when they go out on their own terms.
Ertz, this guy did great, and I thought it's so good to have these fighters that haven't been here around like for so long stepping in and doing a good performance.
I'm going to make the argument that it's a really good thing she's retiring. Here's why. 1, I 100% agree. My favourite fighter as a kid was Anderson Silva. The only reason I ever watched MMA as a kid is that I had the UFC 2009 Undisputed. And it used to have... Obviously, you could play the game and play as the characters. But on the game, it used to have the old fights. This was before they had Fight Pass and all the rest.
Yeah.
So on this game, you could watch all of the classic fights. And Anderson Silva at this point in 2009, he's fresh in. But he's already beaten Rich Franklin. I think it was Undisputed 3 in 2012, actually. So he's already beaten Rich Franklin. And watching his fights used to just be mesmerising. Absolutely mesmerising. But he fought too long. He lost his belt at 37 years old to Chris Weidman.
I wouldn't even talk about his last fights.
But it
just
affects
running
him.
Around the
steroid
octagon.
pop, the knockouts, the losses, the record not starting to look so good. It's all after the age of 37 years old onwards. And if he just retired after Stephan Bonner, no one would even argue he's the greatest fighter of all time. No one would say that John Jones has succeeded him.
Well, I think the other huge thing, though, is that later on in his career he popped. And then it just raises that question over...
all the other fights.
When did you start? And also, like, it's in an era where it's, well, let's be honest, most of the guys he fought were using PEDs.
This is... I will accept that.
I don't have proof, I don't have evidence. I'm just speaking of the times as the people from those times speak of them.
None of this changes the fact that if he'd retired in 2012, none of this happens.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying Nunes isn't clean. She passed fucking 84 tests in her career. Like, most ever. Fair play to her. She's walking out, dominating every opposition. The next title fight is probably going to be Juliana Pena versus Rocky Pennington. That would be my guess. And both of those women got absolutely destroyed in their last fights against Nunes. So, and even she tweeted it afterwards. She's like, I can't wait to see who fights over this fake belt next. She knows it's going to take years. It's going to take a whole generation of fighters, a new person coming forward. And that person still probably isn't going to set the same recognition because they won't be able to beat all these previous champions that had existed and have this status. One person who's not happy though, obviously Aldana's not happy. Juliana Pena wasn't happy. She was watching live. She booed whilst the retirement speech was going on, shouting abuse while she's retiring. When she mentioned I've tied Anderson Silva's wins record, she started screaming, "Don't you dare compare yourself to Anderson Silva." The crowd around her started booing her as a result, and she thought that they were booing Nunes and starts going, "Yeah, boo!" To which the crowd starts going, "No, you!"
I was saying boo once.
She's eaten a lot of shit for this.
Well, you
shown
should.
a massive lack of class. Not really accomplished anything. And Anthony Silva said this great. He said, "You've now forever tied your career to Amanda Nunes. You had no faith that your career could continue in popularity without being the girl that beat Amanda. And the fact that at her retirement, you're still just desperately trying to close that chapter.
Yeah.
You've completely missed the point."
Yeah.
Because she's the only girl that doesn't have a losing record to Amanda that's going to fight for the belt next. She should have just been gracious and said, "Thanks a lot for giving me an easy fucking run to the belt."
Well, did she do a Mike Chiesa and have a few too
No,
many?
but well, she loses the glory. Like she loses the chance to get.
Yeah,
the
I get
glory
where
of
it
being
comes from, but it's
Amanda.
like it's something you should internalize and
Yeah.
deal with when you fucking get home. Like, don't do it on you know you're on camera. Like,
I get that she wanted that third fight. And as an MMA fan,
This
that-
is the business of MMA, you
Yeah.
know, all
Yeah.
the show around it, and I think most fighters now, because they all want to be like Conor, they know they gotta say certain things at certain points if the camera is on,
Yeah.
because you wanna create this
this
I don't get
illusion
it.
of invincibility, that cockiness,
No,
that
well,
like I
but
can
really
carry
this-
the
this-
brand,
this-
I can make the money.
Exactly, the brand thing, you know, like creating your brand and also creating the people they need towards the next fight, because there is a story behind it.
yeah. What I was specifically going to say, though, is that being an MMA fan who also watches women MMA, I've become far more comfortable watching women get violently punched and knocked out than I ever thought I would be in my youth. Even I don't know if...
Took me a while.
Even I
Took
don't know
me
if
a
I
while.
want to watch another 25 minutes of Juliana Pena suffering multiple concussions fighting Nunes, because I just...
Yeah.
Like, Nunes hates her so much that there would be no situation where, like, she's not going to show up 100% ready.
Yes.
And judging from the second fight, I don't think Nunes would end it early. I think she quite likes the idea of, like, hurting this human across 25 minutes. I don't want to see that, dude. Like, Juliana Pena, she's not my favourite fighter. She's got a child. She's reasonably attractive by mixed martial arts fighter
Yes.
standard. You know, she doesn't need that forehead to get bigger, man. I'm just saying, like, she's got the rest of her life to live. Anything you
Okay,
guys
so
want?
someone's getting a DM tonight through Instagram.
If Juliana Pena watches this podcast, one, I'm impressed and thank you, and two, you can DM me any day. Is there anything we want to add to the main event?
Nah, not besides. I would really want to see her like fighting again.
Yeah. I think Aldana as well will move on from this.
Yeah.
I was
don't think-
expecting
I don't
more.
think she'll end
I
up
was
being a worse
expecting.
fighter,
I was
yeah.
expecting more.
It's-
I was
She was
expecting.
a little stuck in the headlights.
It's an aura thing, though, man. It's
I
like,
think when you're getting caught on the way in as well by someone like Nunes,
Yes.
you almost need to have the Pena
You-
approach where
you-
you have no respect for this person. Once
Yeah.
you start touching gloves and believing the whole fucking hype and, oh my god, this is the go.
yeah,
It's-
you could see her trying to get herself going and then just getting rocked, and it was just an instinctive thing. You take a step back and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, like,
Can I say something controversial before we move on to the co-main event?
go on.
Does anyone else think that Nunes is definitely having an affair with her ridiculously hot Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach? That she specifically in a
no.
post-fight interview brought out was like, hey, this is this 28-year-old super hot Brazilian 7-time jiu-jitsu champion. She was great in my career. Come on and take the photo with me. I looked at that and thought, like, oh man, I really hope Nunes' retirement isn't like an affair. 2 years into the.
No, at the same time,
I wouldn't blame her.
if you got a good coach, you're gonna give praise to the coach.
That jiu-jitsu coach was hot though. I don't know if that's just the camera angle, but I looked at that and was just like, damn.
Well, there's Brazilian
Damn.
bodies, Brazilian brothers, Brazilian 10. Now, and Cibroli has vocal also skills. I mean speech skills. Nothing sexual.
Bilingual, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the co-main event. Charles Oliveira, man. He was counted out. Feels a little stupid now because obviously Islam Makhachev is a beast and anyone can have a bad day.
Yes.
It was going to be an even fight. I will say this: we recorded before the weigh-ins, and I have text messages that can prove that I texted my cousin who had money on this fight, and told him Beneil Dariush looks like I know he's close to God, but it looks like he's really close to seeing some afterlife here on these scales. I mean, he was wobbling on his way in, massive black eyes. Charles Oliveira weighed in at 154 pounds, wearing sunglasses.
As usual.
Wearing sunglasses.
I just love him.
Like,
I love that guy.
And just from, there's one thing we didn't factor in, and I should have factored this in. Charles Oliveira puts pressure on, man. You can't be a slow starter against him. He's in your face straight away. There's no measuring process. And
well, it was also just like you can get hit and get hurt and come back, but trying to block head kicks sometimes just doesn't fucking work.
No, exactly.
It's just the second Benny got like cracked with that. A guy like Charles Oliveira is nuts.
I think he lost a bit of motivation as well, man. He got the fight down. He was in the position. I remember when he got the takedown, I thought, this is exactly where Dariush needs to be. He's got good enough jiu-jitsu to not get caught in anything stupid. But he was eating nasty elbows, man. He wasn't landing great shots from that position.
Not landing in the ground. Like, he couldn't get away from Oliveira.
Yeah.
Even though Oliveira had like a worse position most of the times, but even being under, he was getting control of the situation.
Yeah.
So yes, I just think Oliveira did a great job being under in the ground position.
I kind of feel the weight cut had an effect, though. I'm not saying it changes the result,
Probably.
but I feel the Dariush that fought Gamrot, I think does way better in this fight. Way better. But Charles Oliveira looked like he looks, man. He doesn't. If you make a mistake, if you're not on your P's and Q's, he is going to punish you for it. He's in your face. He's looking to make opportunities. He's not just patiently waiting, giving you time to adjust. And
no time for breathing.
I tell you what, ever since Leon Edwards, man, a lot of people are throwing the straight head kick, man. It's proven to be a good combination, and
I was thinking of it as like the Cerrone Rick Story knockout.
Yes, sure.
Like I remember Cerrone knocking Rick Story out of that one and just being like that was kind of the end of Rick Story's career when he was kind of like getting a lot of hype. Like, I don't really remember what happened to Rick Story after that fight. I'm sure he had like more fights in the UFC, but yeah, man, it's a nasty combination if you can like whip your leg up nice.
Yeah. And also for Dariush, this is something we didn't factor in. Charles lost 5 opponents. Islam Makhachev, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. Before that, Kevin Lee, who's a beast. He's beaten everybody that's currently ranked in the top 5, I believe now, including Dariush, apart from the champion.
Wait, who else is in the top 5 right now?
Gaethje, Chandler,
Islam.
No, he's champion technically.
Okay.
Poirier, Dariush, and himself.
Yeah.
So, Dariush's last few opponents, obviously Gamrot was a big step up, but before that, he's beating the likes of a broken Tony Ferguson, Diego Ferreira, that's 34 years old. I'm not saying that he hadn't earned it. The Gamrot fight was amazing, but
Diego was on a crazy
step
win streak. Ferguson is still technically Ferguson.
I'm not saying these aren't good, but what I'm saying is that Charles Oliveira is a step up, whereas Dariush, at best, is not a dissimilar level from what Charles has been fighting and beating in his last 4 or 5 fights.
Possibly, but it's also like Oliveira was being disrespected, got an opportunity, finished off the win streak. Dariush was on an insane win streak and just continued to be disrespected in terms of the matchmaking. But again, like I do feel like we kind of got robbed a little bit. Like this would have been a great fight if it gone a little longer, but you can't fault Charles for being such a natural born predator. It was just a great finish.
That guy got the biggest shout of the crowd, man.
Yeah.
He's had the most Twitter responses, the most views are related to him. Like, he's a genuine superstar.
Wait, doing your fucking shit in English now, is it? Right.
He's fighting Islam next. I think that's decided.
I mean, Dana White's been coy on it, but they was literally described by Anik
this is
in the
already spoken,
walkout
right?
as a title eliminator. It's just, it was supposed to be a title eliminator if Beneil Dariush won.
And now Charles has put on such an impressive display. People want to see the Islam fight.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the question. Anyone think that the Islam fight goes differently?
Potentially,
No.
I think he was awful in the last fight. So it's hard to say because I don't feel like I felt that everything I felt before that fight that made me consider it to be quite even in my head didn't really come to fruition. Now, plausibly, that could. I'm not there. I'm not privy to their fucking camps. I don't know what injuries are going on. Who the fuck knows? But all things being even, yeah, I think Charles Oliveira's got a shot.
I really don't think he's had a shot because I don't think his wrestle is going to be at the Islam's level. Like, I don't think someone can get to that level so quickly because he obviously so lack of capability of handling a ground fight with Islam. And I think if Islam keeps training with Khabib every day, these guys are commit, and I think it's not gonna be easy for him.
I feel if Oliveira's as good in the stand-up game as we know he can be, it's going to force Islam into trying to snatch clinches, force positions up against the cage, maybe even take open mat takedowns, where he will expose himself to potential submissions. And I also just feel like if Oliveira is just like he was like at about 50%. If he can just be at fucking 55%, he's going to have opportunities to crack Islam. He just couldn't deal with the power in the stand-up game in that first fight, and he really wasn't himself in that fight. I know that Islam has the power in the jab and in the overhand, and when he has a nice clean shot and the hooks, the uppercuts, he's going to have more power than Oliveira. But I just feel like if Oliveira fights his game, really goes out there and imposes his will like he wants to, it's a very even fight.
Islam beat him from stand-up.
Yeah.
Not from wrestling. The 2 times he dropped him and the fight got to the ground was from him rocking him and hitting him with a good shot. Every other situation, it was Oliveira trying to force takedowns. I don't know if Oliveira I think maybe he was reckless. Maybe he thought this guy doesn't have anything for me on the feet. I just need to be aggressive, do what I've always done. I don't know. The thing is, though, I feel like Islam's kind of been humanized a little bit. Like, you saw what Volkanovski did. And you do kind of think, like, okay, like, this isn't Khabib. This isn't an unbeatable monster.
No. I actually think Israel, if he really won that fight, it was very close. Because I thought Magatev won it.
He's never going to have to deal with such a small rehydration window ever again as well. And for a guy that cuts as much weight,
I thought he wasn't himself fighting. Like, he didn't have the strength, the speed, and also he just forgot his skills, his ground skills. I believe. I don't know.
When you get rocked, it's hard though, man.
Yeah.
It's like when Nunes tapped out Misha Tate, and Misha Tate gets a lot of criticism afterwards. Being like, "You made loads of mistakes. You just let her do all these things." She's like, "Yeah, I know. My nose was broken. I was concussed. I wasn't thinking that. I was more thinking like, oh shit, I'm on the ground. My first title defense isn't going particularly well right now. Oh shit, there's a choke. It's in. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Well, this is over." It doesn't always go your way. Beneil Dariush, my suggested bounce back fight is he fights the loser of Poirier Gaethje 2.
I love it, but the same reason that he got stuck on that ridiculously long win streak and has to then fight Charles Oliveira is because no one else will fucking fight him. If they'll go for it, sure. But I think they can probably hold out for like the loser of like, let's say it fucking happens like Chandler McGregor, and it's just a way bigger fight than Beneil Dariush for all of these guys. He's got the same problems he had now. It's just they're compounded.
It's a rough night for Beneil. Shame. It was not a rough night for the Canadians. We are going to group them together. But let's just list this final fucking list down. Marc-Andre Barriault wins an absolute fight of the night war with Eric Anders.
Close fight.
Close fight.
Yeah.
I thought your boy
Best
did really
fight
well.
for me.
One fight of the night. They both got an extra 50 grand. Eric Anders just lost out. Doesn't have the energy. But Barriault, Jasmine Jasudavicius, Ayman Zahabi, Mike Mallow, Diane Belbita, not technically Canadian, but she resides in Vancouver. And, God, what's his name? Carl Nelson.
Yeah.
6-0. This wasn't set up for the Canadians. This wasn't like London cards that we've seen where it's like, okay, yeah, we did great, but all of the people that won were massive.
Well, yeah, I
favourites.
think other than Barrio, they were all dogs, right?
All underdogs, man. None of us thought that Yasmin Jasudavicius was going to pull that out against Maverick. Blake Builder, undefeated, heavy favourite against Carl Nelson. Mike Mallow, I think, was a favourite, but everyone kind of thought Adam
pretty close
Fujic
on
was...
that one. I don't know who the favourite wound up being, but at various times I looked, that one was shifting. Power Bar is the only one that was like an actual established favourite.
Yeah, most people had Maria Oliveira beating Belbita, but they showed up. The crowd were fantastic. Had a little Commanders Washington FedEx Field moment in the Mike Mallow walkout where the barrier came down. Almost crushed him. That would have been an unfortunate end. But a couple of terrific finishes from Mallow and Zahabi. They provided the two proper finishes of the
Zahabi was the most surprising.
That was a sick knockout against Richie Lang as well, who's, we know, you don't have a name like the Mongolian Murderer because you're a boring point fighter.
No, of course. Have you guys realized how bad he got knocked out? That when everything was stopped, he put his guard up and he was willing to keep fighting because he didn't even know like what was going on around him. Such a good right hand. No, was it? Yeah, was it right hand? And well, I just felt sorry for him when I saw he was so off the place.
Yeah. Well, the card needed a knockout. We did have some good fights, but let's look at the Canadians. What was your favourite? Pick your moment out of the Canadians. Which one stood out for you?
Probably Jasudavicius, but that Zahabi one is like right up there. Just Zahabi is a guy that I used to slate a lot for being such a wooden, slow, sloppy athlete. I don't know, he's doing fucking yoga or some shit, but like the last 3-4 fights now, completely different fighter. Didn't really see any of it in this fight because it was that fucking quick, but yeah, that one's that's an honorary mention. But Jasudavicius, just that's how you channel the fucking crowd. That's how you ball out, and yeah, that was just a great fucking performance.
The Canadian moment.
For me, Barriault is that how you say that
Barriault,
name?
yeah, the power bar.
I cop out. I just say power bar.
Oh, okay, yes. Then for me, him first round takes him down. After that, they get to in the clinch. You know when they are grabbing. Yep. He really landed really good knees to the stomach, and after that, the second, third round became more aggressive for both sides. Really good exchanges, and I really think he took it so good and landed really good like combinations. And actually, it was the fighter that surprised me probably the most because I wasn't expecting that much from him, and I really think he handled that fight really well from first round to the third one. even though he was doing better first one and dominating more, and the second and the third got more even, but he took those shots. He actually landed great punches, and yes, is everything I can say about it.
Like I said, when Anders is coming back, if you can like ball out harder,
Here's a crazy stat about Marc-Andre Barrier. The first 50% of his UFC career, he had a 20% win rate. The second 50% of his career, he has an 80% win rate.
So that's 10 fights.
Approximately. But that is a fucking turnaround. I mean, you go from being a average, below 500 fighter, on the verge of being cut, to finding a style that works for you, putting pressure on, making sure that you're not the guy that runs out of cardio.
Yeah.
Super impressive. For Yasmin Yazovicius, we've seen Miranda Maverick lose close fights. And we've seen her get dominated by Erin Blanchfield, because fucking everybody gets dominated by Erin Blanchfield. Yazovicius, my two notes is, she is clearly way better than I gave her credit for. And two, Natalia Da Silva might be the most dangerous human being in women's flyweight MMA right now. Because she went through Jasmine like she wasn't there. And Jasmine, since then, has pretty much dominated the two fights that she's had against decent competition. This Da Silva girl, we need to watch out for her, because I think she's... We used to say Shevchenko ready. It might be Grasso ready if she can win that rematch, but...
Yeah. I think Shevchenko ready still rings true.
I'll work with that. Rest of the card did deliver some good hits. Let's run through it. What was your favourite fight that we have not discussed so far?
I guess we haven't really talked about the Carl Nelson fight.
Let's talk about this.
I felt like Nelson coming in, big underdog, loses the first round, looks slow, looks like he's not going to be able to land, get anything off, just starts to find those counters, just starts to like make it a war of attrition, just like you go, I go, who goes harder, who goes cleaner. And Builder made it a little too easy with his inexperience and just making it kind of like a flurry of like straight shots are going to win. But some of that is just you're tired, you're hurt, and you're trying to land your big shots. And Nelson didn't falter in that way. He just fucking had faith in the process and just fucking chewed it out. I like that kind of fight.
No, good win for him. And he's somebody that I've always looked at as very distinctly average. Like when he fought Jai Herbert, a couple of his other opponents, nothing's ever stood out.
It was a vet performance.
Made it work. I think I know what yours is going to be, because we haven't talked about David Dvorak versus Usyk yet.
Yes, Usyk and Dvorak, for sure. I was really surprised of the speed level Usyk kept until the end of the fight. He dominated him like in the ground, also in hands, and actually I was very surprised when I believe it's in the second round they go to the ground, and the guy he almost chokes him.
Yeah,
I believe, right? Like, I thought he was gonna just like to tap out just because his neck was gonna like fucking break. Although he was halfway out, because at some point he was halfway out, but that was very tight. That was so much, so much
like,
pressure.
oh, his neck's popping out, It's like, because I can see this much of his neck.
Yes.
But I can also see like where it's not popping out, and I'm like, that doesn't look great.
Came in on short notice, dude.
Snack his fucking neck.
He came to fight, man, like, and
another vet performance. Let's be honest.
From a debutant on short notice against number 12 ranked guy, I think officially at flyweight.
Fuck, I was gonna say 15, but it is he's a ranked
opponent.
Like,
short notice, you come in like that, fair fucking play, man. And the Aussies are always good fun. We need more Aussies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plus, when it comes to ranked fights, let's be honest, like, really kind of like outside the top 5, it's not how good you are, it's just who you fought recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes.
Also, there's not that many flyweights.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't lightweight. This isn't a stacked division.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it could be as stacked as bantamweight if they didn't try to kill it off as recently as they did. And it's not this recent, it's just that it's not built up in the same way the bantamweight is. But I suppose, you look at some other organisations like flyweight doesn't run deep across the board. Bantamweight's fucking rich.
Yeah. It's like bantamweight to welterweight, ridiculously stacked. After that, it starts to fade off quite quickly.
Because I believe they have the perfect balance between power striking and like the speed also. So those divisions,
That ability to scramble.
they
There's
they
also
look
just-
more skillful than like heavier divisions. They look more. They are not. I guess when you get weight, you just lose speed. Lose also technique, because
It's
why do they
physics,
look more
it's the
technical?
same bones, tendons, all that other shit. You're like
Yes.
265 pounds.
But
like,
they look more technical.
It's also competition as well, though. So, like from about featherweight, I'd say to about welterweight, when you factor in weight cuts, that's where 80% of the population's
Is-
weight will generally fall when they're fit and healthy, and then when you factor in the weight cut. So they're always going to be good divisions because that's going to have the most number of people, so therefore it's the most amount of competition. Only the best will get to the top. The best is filled with extremely good things.
And if you go above that height and you're an elite athlete, you get drawn into athletics or other professional sports immediately. Like from the age of 12, like from the age of 9. Like,
And for all you viewers, if you're still with us out there, we are going to be talking about the card that's coming up. And it's headlined by two middleweights that are both ranked in the top 5. I'm not overly excited about this fight. And one of the reasons that we're going to talk about is that neither of these guys would be top 5 fighters if they were in any of the lower weight classes.
yeah,
We will get to
Yeah.
that.
that's true.
Anything else we want to talk about? UFC 289.
Nah.
Fans were great in Canada. Good
Yeah.
show. Let's go back. Let's get some more Canadians going. Mike Mallow did a great job promoting, generally. Kept it going. Very energetic. Bit too energetic for the fans that broke the barrier, but no one died. So we're all good. Few things I want to touch. One thing I want to touch on before we get into next weekend's action. The Ultimate Fighter. Episode 3 got released early. I haven't seen episode 2. And as it turns out, I'm not alone. Nobody's watched episode 2.
Nope.
Yeah, I haven't
Everyone
seen
watched
it.
I
episode
haven't.
1,
Nope.
and then the ratings have completely plummeted to a point that they're worse than they were on the second episode of the Nunes Pena season last year, which I watched and was not entertaining. They thought Conor was going to be their fucking guy on this. Why aren't I watching it? I'm not watching it because I don't know. I don't really like Conor McGregor.
I guess
And
in the
it's
same
also
week
got
that he
Conor.
knocked out the Miami Heat mascot, it's
Oh, shit,
basically everyone's kind of getting their Conor McGregor fill, I assume.
There's also been a lot of Conor McGregor recently. He's had a
Always.
documentary on Netflix. He's been popping up at all these different fights. He's been in the news. He's got a movie that he's been working on that he's getting media for.
Is he really working on
He's
it?
in Roadhouse. He's in with
Oh,
Jake
the
Gyllenhaal.
remake.
and-
Yeah.
I just try to not. I on purpose avoid Conor McGregor's content.
Yeah,
It's
same.
gonna
I haven't
make
seen
you a
the
happier person.
documentary. I don't feel great about having watched the
But-
Ultimate Fighter this season, but I'm going to do it.
There is such a thing as overexposure. Is there just too much Conor McGregor? And is Conor McGregor not an interesting, relevant fighter for now? Because, I know the casuals were there for a while, but for the casuals, Conor McGregor's now lost the majority of his recent fights.
Yeah.
And then he's
Yeah.
not been fighting for a while. He's just a voice. And for the hardcores, he's not been relevant in MMA since 2018.
Exactly.
In terms of a legitimate, obviously the Poirier fights were big and
Yeah, no,
That had
it's
relevance, but-
Well, it was big because of the injury.
it
pretty
was the
much.
hangover, really. It was.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, look, McGregor's been on his way out for a long time. The rest of the world's slowly catching up. Fuck knows why, but I'd imagine what with it being on Fight Pass, which is a dog shit application on most platforms.
It's on ESPN in America.
How
It's on
are the
BT
how are the
Sports.
numbers
It's
in
on
ESPN?
BT Sport in the UK.
I don't know how much people in the UK watch the Ultimate Fighter though.
I don't think they do, but they do watch BT Sport and they're still not watching it.
Yeah.
BT Sport, fine program. Alan Casserole, Nick Pete, terrific content.
Yeah, and you expect kind of like actual sports documentaries on top of sports coverage. So something that is heavily just reality TV is not necessarily. I know
Maybe people just
themed.
don't give a crap about Roosevelt Roberts or Brad Katona.
I would say that like if you take out the McGregor being a coach, the wealth of talent they have on the vet side
it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, like I gotta be honest, like just how long that first episode was, so I knew how short the fight was gonna be. I was like, well, I know how good Roosevelt Roberts is.
Wasn't a lot of Conor McGregor as well. There was a lot of like Conor McGregor
Well,
showing up for 2 minutes
You have
and
to
then
be on set to
not.
be filmed, don't you? So
That's the issue.
same issue we had the last time we did this fucking show.
Yeah. Would be embarrassing if they get worse ratings than Nunes versus Pena though.
I think it's coming. Well, actually, I don't know. But if the second episode no one was watching it, I don't feel bad about missing it.
They released the third episode early, so it's not usually a good sign.
I gotta start to watch them because I haven't watched any of them. I got to admit I haven't watched any of them. But yes, it's because everything that McGregor is in, I try not to watch because I hope he doesn't see this, but I don't like that guy. I have a personal issue with that guy. Like I don't like his behavior.
Yeah, I hope you do see it.
So I try not to support his like money empire. Just watching his stuff.
Yeah.
So whenever he's in something, I just try to let's not support it.
Very smart. I think, listen, that's a very understandable point of view. I also think, so I know sport's different, but this is TV, and tell me a show that's 31st season was better than its 10th season. It doesn't exist.
No.
South Park's not better now than it was 10 years ago. The Simpsons isn't better now than it was 20 years ago. The format's
20 years,
done.
no. 10 years ago, who the fuck has this? It's been
I
pretty
haven't
bad
watched
for a while.
Simpsons in a very long time. The point is, nobody's watching The Ultimate Fighter. It might die. If Conor McGregor doesn't get you viewers, I don't know what will.
Ambra gets better. Ambra gets better as it goes.
I don't know what that is, but
David
if you do,
Attenborough.
let us know.
Nature documentary.
Oh, Attenborough. Okay, that makes sense. Attenborough's a national treasure. Last thing to talk about before we call it a day. Card coming up.
Yeah.
Vittori versus Cannonier. I like both of these fighters.
Can you name another fight on this card?
No.
Yep.
Not without looking at my phone.
Me either.
And I like both of these fighters, but why aren't I excited about this fight? Here's the reason. Neither of these guys is ever going to beat the current champion. They won't beat the next champion, because if Adesanya either moves up in weight or loses, it's probably going to be to Robert Whittaker.
Yeah.
And neither of these guys are beating Robert Whittaker. And I know that for a fact, because they've both fought Robert Whittaker and lost very convincing decisions. So, and they're both in their, one's in their mid-30s, the other one's in their late 30s. This is just one of those fights where it's like...
It's
I mean,
the
I think
biggest
Vittori's gonna
name
win.
value they could put on a card that they were just churning out for the ESPN quota.
I mean, it's not going to be an awful fight, but it's not going to be a great fight. Neither of them has got ridiculous output.
No.
Vittori's not going to wrestle as much or be as aggressive with the wrestling because he's going to be worried about counter strikes. Cannonier in a 5-round fight becomes really boring. He was super exciting in 3-round fights.
Yeah.
And now he's become way too cautious. Got super lucky with the... I'm saying super a lot. Got very lucky with the decision win against Strickland. I thought Strickland should have got that win. Vittori probably wins, and then it's like, where do you put him? He's still probably not going to beat the Whittakers and the Adesanyas of this world, no matter how many chances you give him. Does he beat a Strickland? Maybe. But...
Well, like, we're in a division where we're like, can anyone beat the number one challenger that pretty much no one really truly believes, apart from me, can beat the champion? And even then I'm like, well, he has to have his best day though. It's very, very hard to give a fuck about middleweight if it's not Whittaker or Adesanya fighting. Just end of.
Now, having a look at the rest of this card. Armin Petrosian versus Christian Leroy Duncan.
Yeah,
I have an interest in that fight.
That's a good fight.
I have a personal interest in this fight. A good friend of mine is good friends with Christian Leroy Duncan.
Okay.
And he's English. So obviously I'm going to watch that fight. Lucas Almeida versus Pat Sabatini. All day long. Muslim Salikov down at welterweight fighting Nicholas Dalby. Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds awesome. Manuel Torres versus Nicholas Motta. That's a decent fight. And Arman Sarukian returning against Joaquin Silva.
I hope we get some knockouts here.
Why is he
'cause
fighting Joaquin
these guys,
Silva?
most of them are really good
I have no
Did someone
idea.
pull out?
boxers.
I think maybe somebody pulled out. You've got Zalgas Zumagulov on the prelims. Dan Arguleta taking on Ronnie Lawrence. Zach Pauger's back against Modestas Bukauskas. That's the opening fight. That's a decent fight. There's very little name value. Jimmy Flick.
Who's Jimmy Flick?
Jimmy Flick had
He's-
a great
yeah.
submission like 2 years ago and then retired winning like performance of the night. He was just like, I did
okay.
it, I fulfilled my dream, I got a couple of wins in the UFC, got a submission of the night, submission of the year contender, I'm happy to retire. Year and a half later he comes back and they give him, I can't remember who they made him fight, but it was somebody that I looked at and thought, you're not beating this guy, man. Like, this is a real fucking dangerous dude and you've not fought for a year and a half and you were kind of out. And he lost quite badly. And now he's clearly fighting again. Which makes me think he needs some money and that's why he started fighting again. And is he...
I didn't have this fighter in my radar. Look, so I'll check it. I'll take him later.
It was a cool submission. It was like a flying triangle, I think he got. Or a triangle that he cinched
Don't
in.
look to me this late in the evening.
There are some decent fights in this card, but there's no name value. This is just one of those where you sit down and you're like, oh, it's that guy.
Well, but
Yeah, if we were still doing
This-
big
this-
shows,
these
I
are the
I
ones you
guess
can get
I'd be like talking about up a little
new
bit.
fighters to add to your list of must watch.
Yeah.
But Josh touches on an interesting point because
Yeah,
we've
that's
got,
gonna bring up again.
I think we've got UFC now every single weekend until like
November.
November. Some crazy fucking schedule. There's no way that every single one of these cards is going to be a really good card. And if you don't have good name value and it keeps coming that often with bad cards and then decent cards and average cards, it does for the casual viewer and for the audience you're trying to expand to become a little bit wearing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like for even like super popular sport. Why am I saying super so much on this fucking podcast? Jesus Christ.
I've only picked up on it the 2 times you've picked up on it.
It's a recent thing. It's like the last 10 minutes or so.
I think you might have only said it twice.
In my mind, I feel like I'm saying it a lot.
Maybe because I'm saying it, you're saying it.
It's
Just
possible.
wondering.
It's possible. Who knows? Really popular sports have seasons, usually. They have break periods. And even football, American football, fucking basketball, sports that in their national countries are beloved. By the end of the season, usually people are like, whew, I need a break from this.
Yes.
I'm not going to watch any basketball for 6 weeks or 8 weeks
Yeah.
or 2 months or whatever it is. And then I get to be excited when it comes back. And you don't really get this with fights. And if you're trying to get that casual fan that doesn't watch, it's a big commitment to ask them to watch every single fucking weekend.
No, of course.
Well, it's also if I'm seeing the same people fight in a division where I'm seeing as you climb up and you're getting into the top 15, top 10, top 5, your peers have 2 or 3 common opponents with you. There's a way to compare your streak with someone else's, your abilities with someone else's. What I have now is debutants fighting debutants. Debutantes fighting guys that have only fought people that have been in the UFC for 2 or 3 fights, and they're all fighting each other, and then all of a sudden you're on a 4 or 5 fight win streak, having fought middling kind of competition.
True.
You're up against a ranked fighter, and I can't give an honest assessment on where I think that person's at, because even if I knew everything there was to know about all aspects of martial arts, unless I'm simultaneously in both guys' camps at the same time, how the fuck would you really have a clue? I'm not seeing enough comparative competition. It's just they're churning people out so quickly. Previously, if you were shit, you were gonna get 3 to 5 fights, and I could say confidently how shit you were, because I saw who you did well and who you did poorly against, and what you were good and what you were bad at. Now, to be honest, the sport's at a state where it should be easier than ever to kind of compare, because wrestling's such a huge part of it. Everyone has such a well-rounded base. Yeah, but like now more than ever, people really train it. So it's
even the kickboxers will have a much higher level compared to, like, you watch, like, particularly
no one in pro MMA doesn't know what a whizzer is. You know what I mean? Like, whereas you go back 10 years, like maybe like 60% have never heard of it. Who the fuck knows? But you don't get the. It should be easier than ever to compare athletes and break down fights, but the UFC just want to punish me and us.
Well, it's hard. Listen, unless you really love the sport, it becomes hard. For a casual fan, they need to have people that they know or can get attached to, and that's their entry into the sport. They get invested in that person, they want to watch that person fight, and then that leads them to watching more people fight. It's really hard to do that when you have 9 debutantes in a card.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them are going to be great. But
No, of course, and I believe this sport is growing so much, and then you have so many more fighters now than before.
Yeah.
That it's even more difficult to pick from them to get really like actual good fights. You know, I really believe Dana is just like doing it like, okay, I need 100 fights, just bring whoever. Let's see how they do. If you don't do well, goodbye. If you do well, so that's why we see so many new guys.
Yeah.
You know, that comes here
Well,
one fight, two fights,
the
and
cheaper
leave.
contracts as well.
Of course,
and the
of course.
international expansion, man. Think about the way that they've put a PI in Mexico.
That's why I was saying this is growing so much.
Look how much Spain's developed recently.
Of course,
Like, Spain didn't
Well,
have any fighters, and now they've got like 3 or 4 guys. They've got 1 guy in the UFC. They've got
yes, well, the first
the
one,
Georgian guy as well.
Espino, El Guapo, Juan El Guapo
Juan
Espino.
Espino, who,
Yeah,
like,
the
won
one,
the
the Ultimate Fighter. And I was so mad because I actually like that guy so much. He's like a teddy bear with the skills of a fucking killer. And I really love that guy.
Also,
And
heavyweight
I think it was the
grapplers are
same
always a
how
threat.
he lost his last fight. It was the same for me because I really believe he didn't hit him in his balls, and he could have kept fighting. And actually, I really believe that the other guy quit it because he had not the cardio to keep going, not because he had any pain or anything. It was a cardio thing, and he was seeing himself losing.
Yeah.
Even though he was winning the fight. The other guy, I don't remember his name. The other guy was winning the fight.
Coutinho? I can't remember now.
I can't remember.
I can't remember now. But he was winning the fight, but he was getting so
round,
hard. And I think Espino, which had way better wrestling skills, was going to beat him at the end. And then Alvarez, which was the same how he lost that bad
6'3"
elbow.
lightweight, you're always going to be a threat. Like, he's a fucking...
Obviously.
He's still a threat, though. He's still going to do something in that division.
I hope so. Well, he's so much taller. His reach is so much longer than everyone else.
Really good striker.
Of course.
Really
good striker. And he is really good in his... he's really good wrestling and in the ground. But the thing is, I believe that if a guy is so much smaller than you, but he's your same weight, in the ground becomes very slippery.
It depends. So, to get submitted, it becomes almost like more dangerous when you have long limbs. But at the same time, being able to snatch jokes from certain positions, and being able to manipulate and set up submissions in certain ways is going to be a little simpler. And having a longer frame is going to be better for some things, like maybe like if you're trying to get like a triangle choke from like fucking half guard and you're super powerful, you want to be short and compact. But any other position, I would imagine that being able to drop your shoulder, it's going to be so much easier when you've got like more length and leverage in the arm.
Yes, but they are smaller. They're faster. So they are slippery. Like you cannot get them. They're just like a mouse. A fucking mouse moving around. It's difficult to.
A lot of tall people
really grab them.
A lot of tall people don't fight small people well or intelligently. If you've got a small guy who's a good wrestler and you're a tall striker and you know that what he wants to do, you know what he wants to do more than anything else is shoot underneath your straight punches and get on your legs while you're unbalanced. the number of times you see this is like Darren Till versus Derek Brunson. It's a great example of this. It's like Darren Till throwing big left overhands coming over the top every time, and it's just like, no, that's stupid. Throw straight down the middle.
Of course.
Throw under.
You have
Small
the reads.
person.
Yes,
Small
exactly.
person. You can hit
Step
that
back.
motherfucker
You
can hit that motherfucker.
Step back.
with
Come on.
uppercuts.
Yeah.
And he's still like 2
that
feet
was a
away
guy
from
who's scared to
Exactly.
lose, trying to like win.
Dude,
one
uppercuts
shot, though.
looks
that
like
was-
jabbing. An uppercut, like bam. I know.
I don't know why. There's a way to do it, but
Yeah.
out of curiosity, so obviously I know you've been a fan, and you obviously mentioned you kind of experienced with it. Have you noticed a big change in popularity in MMA? Obviously, being from Spain yourself, just in general in Spain, like sort of, you know, on the grapevine kind of thing. Have you noticed like a lot more people just in general being aware of it? Or...
Yes, but not because of any Spanish, fighter. Really, it hurts me, but it's because of Conor McGregor. Because I think, just because we come out, it's always to the same thing, right? Like this guy
Jordan.
really brought MMA to another level.
Yeah, did the same thing in the UK.
Yes, and but I really believe now I see many more fighters going to TV shows, to La Resistencia, which is really like one of the biggest now, the night shows
Okay.
in Spain. Many fighters are going there, and also many like the best podcasts in Spain, like. These kids are making crazy podcasts of 100,000 viewers, something like that. Yes, crazy things, and they're bringing also the fighters in. So, yes, I believe the newer generations are like getting more aware of what the MMA world, and especially the UFC, because it's the most watched MMA championship or brand. And yes, I really believe it's growing, and I actually believe if Ilia Topuria, which is now the most known one, and he has the ability to be the champions, for me by far.
He's got a big fight coming up this month, I think.
Exactly.
He's fighting Josh Emmett in a
Yes.
main event. Yeah.
Yes.
I got to be honest, I think he murders Josh Emmett.
Me too.
On paper, yeah, it's just that like they both got like that one thing
The knockout power.
they
right
do
now.
well.
Yes.
One of them does it better, but the problem is like it's
But Ilya is out of the paper, to me. Like
yeah.
he really he could beat anyone in his division right now. For me, like I've seen the other guys, and they don't impress me as much.
Well, he's
And
combining.
trust me in this one, he will win the next fight, and next UFC. They're gonna make a UFC in Spain because of that.
Oh fuck it! I want that. I want that so
No.
bad. I want that so
Of
bad.
course, like,
But-
a friend of mine that is also
we
a very big fan. He told me, dude, this guy's winning, and they're gonna make a UFC.
On paper, but Josh Emmett's not bringing a knife to a gunfight. Josh Emmett's bringing a much
big
slower,
fucking
shittier
dude.
gun to a gunfight, but it's still a fucking gun.
Yes.
Like, if Ilia Topuria gets shot, he gets fucking shot. Like, it's not like fighting another
Just
guy where it's
have
like,
to
yeah,
keep-
maybe you can
keep his
wear a
chin
few
away.
shots, you can, like, you know, you've got to be conscious of that the entire fucking time.
Also, Josh Emmett successfully landed affecting shots on Yair Rodriguez, who I'm not saying he's as powerful as Topuria. Obviously, the wrestling threat isn't there. But Yair Rodriguez is about as scary a human being as you can stand and strike with.
And fights about
And-
as long as any other 45er does.
And Emmett landed on him.
I would switch sides on the straight, for sure.
I'll tell you what, though. Volk versus Topuria. Topuria versus Yair. Those would be some fun fights.
Yeah.
Featherweights apiece. We will talk about those fights when they happen. For now, I think... First show of the Triumvirate.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Triumvirate Mark III. It didn't work for Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus. It didn't work for Julius Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey Magnus. I've been watching a lot of Rome on HBO. That's the only reason these references are fresh in my mind. But here, I think we might have something. And the good news is we don't have to divide between Africa, Western Rome, and the Eastern Empire. So there's not a lot to fight over in terms of royalties on this podcast right now.
Now, we will probably disagree more between Paddy Pinley and, for example, Ilia Topuria, maybe.
Future shows will happen. Miguel, did you enjoy your first experience of the MMA split?
Yes, I really did. I felt a bit nervous at the beginning, but I felt the conversation went very easy for all of us, so yes.
And the good news is, nobody's watching anyway. Certainly not an hour and a half into the video. We'll maybe have like one dedicated or very stoned cousin Tom just on the background catching us.
That is true. Very, very... People don't get to the end. But
If you have made it this far, tell us you've made it this far, and leave a comment saying, I made it this far.
we're not...
And if you do, we might consider a Patreon, because if you've been willing to sit through this shit for an hour and a half, we might be able to get some money out of you.
I do like that people don't get to the end, though, because it means they're not just falling asleep to it. Because I get to the end of a lot of YouTube videos, I am not awake for these videos.
No.
This is YouTube just playing for 5 hours on straight on my Xbox
I reached
after
the
I
end.
crash
I
out.
reached the end of many YouTube videos, but that is because I watch a ridiculous amount of YouTube, to the point where I think it's affecting my attention span.
Well, you lot stay engaged for as long as you do, and you're engaged enough to switch off.
Speaking
But thank
of
you for
switching
getting
off,
to the end this week.
Bye-bye,
We're switching off.
guys.
Like, subscribe, all that jazz. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Bye,
Let's
Laurie.
motherfucking
Bye,
go.
Dave.
Bye-bye.